Welcome to the Time with the Superintendent. This is a program that's been put together with the help of the high school television class under the direction of Jude Daly, instructor. And it's an opportunity for me to come before the Wakefield public and discuss important issues to the community, and at the same time give these young people a chance to learn more about television production. So today we serve two purposes. I have the special privilege today to invite and enjoy Bill Scully, welcome him to the program to talk about a very important issue to the town of Wakefield. Both Mr. Scully and I in the last 2 years have spent hundreds of hours on the issue of school facilities. And so it is an issue that is important to the community, and I welcome Mr. Scully to join us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've prepared a number of questions for Mr. Scully in terms of things that I think might be important for the community to understand relative to the facilities plan that we will present to the community on November 7th. And I guess my first question to you, Mr. Scully, is could you give us a general sense of what the new plan is that we'll present on November 7th?
Well, the plan that we're going to present on November 7th is quite different than one that we have presented in the past. This is really a long-range strategic building plan. It addresses the educational needs of the people of Wakefield for the next 50 years, but it's going to do so over a 20 to 25-year period of time. It's going to be based upon educational needs, but it's also going to be based upon the resources of the town to be able to afford them. So it's extremely comprehensive. It covers all 570,000 square feet of building space that's under your control and the people of Wakefield. And I think that it presents a very doable solution to the town's needs over the next several years.
What specifically will the town see at the November 7th town meeting? What will they vote on at that day?
Well, the task force, and I have the pleasure of chairing a group of very wonderful volunteers, some of which have been planning this since 1994, will present 2 articles on that night. The first 2 articles are potentially 5 or 6 articles over the overall plan. What we have done is we have prioritized what our needs are within our system based upon the assessment tools that we've had, basically the condition of the buildings itself. And we have determined that the building that needs to be replaced or renovated the most is the Montrose School. And we've done so based upon criteria that the School Building Survey Committee had in 1994 and other reports that we had from our architects and engineers a year ago, which basically has said that the wiring in that particular building is probably the worst in the town based upon the fact that it's 1920, 1925 wiring, cloth, insulated, and so forth. What we would like to do in the first phase is to renovate the Doll Bear School and to add an addition to the Doll Bear School, to set up a elementary school of approximately 425 students that will service the students that used to go to the Herd, the Doll Bear, on the Montrose, to be considered still in the neighborhood, but the neighborhood to be considered the north side of Wakefield. That's the first article. And I think that article, and I think we'll discuss that further as we go along, is a very doable article. The second article is a planning article, and this is what this plan stresses, planning, always staying one step ahead. We would like to consider drawing up plans and specifications for the replacement of the second priority, which is the Franklin School. And that school has been determined to be very close in condition to the Montrose, and we need to replace that. And that will be at the Woodville School. And that will comprise the area of Franklin and all the way down to Woodville to see sort of the east section of Wakefield. And this will be for carrying out the construction sometime in the year 2002, 2003. But always based upon the town's ability to be able to pay for these buildings on an ongoing basis.
Is there any specific differences or major differences that you can see between the plan we presented in 1995 and the one that we're now presenting here in 1996?
Well, I think the differences are drastic. We had planned a 3-district elementary program. We're back to the 4-district program, which basically represents the districts that we presently have. We're not going forward. We've listened very, very carefully to the people of Wakefield, the citizens of Wakefield, to say what were their major concerns. They thought we went too fast. They thought we were doing too much. We're not going fast with this one. One school at a time, based upon the ability of the town to pay it. And I think that's the major difference in this plan. But we do address all of the educational needs. We're not compromising them. And those educational needs will be based upon how we do them over a 20 to 25-year period of time and not a 6-year period of time.
You and the task force have asked me to analyze the plan specifically on the issues of the educational components. Absolutely. And I certainly, looking at the Zimmerman report back in 1995, have convinced in my mind the task force that we've made no educational compromises in the building structures. If anything, the compromise maybe is in the timeline, the extension of the timeline. Are there any other compromises that you can think of that we may have made in this plan?
No, I think the timeline is the compromise, but the clear indication from the people of the town of Wakefield is no overrides to do this. Do it within our available resources. And that's how we're going to do it. But, you know, when you looked at that educational plan and you gave us the specifications which you thought we needed, I was impressed by the fact that I think it mirrors the social economic conditions of the town of Wakefield. We really are a middle-class community. There is absolutely no fluff in that plan whatsoever. But you have not compromised in your desire to have separate science classrooms in the elementary schools, separate libraries in the elementary schools, computer rooms. Nothing fancy, but we really need to compete with all of these other towns in the area that are doing it, and we really need to prepare these children for the 21st century. And I think one of the real key things that's come out in this plan is it's not just a plan for the 20% of the people of Wakefield who have children in the school system. It's a plan for 100% of all of Wakefield, because what it really does is it protects our property values. And we really need to stress this with everybody in the town. If you have a good school system, we can maintain our property values, and that's what we're attempting to do.
In terms of the financing of the plan, you have said it's based on resources, that we fully intend to finance this plan under 2.5. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Well, I think I've been very pleased to have on the committee Phil McCarty, who is the chairman of our Ways and Means Committee. He's a member of the Town Finance Committee. He's joined in that committee by 4 or 5 other members of the Finance Committee. We don't want to confuse the fact the Finance Committee is serving specifically on there. These are just resource people. They have come up with a wonderful plan based upon the use of the stabilization fund, which clearly shows that the town can afford to pay for phase 1 under 2.5, and also the planning article under 2.5 without any debt override. We'll have the opportunity of presenting this to the Finance Committee in the whole this Thursday evening, and we hope that we'll get their support in this.
The major issue there is the fact that we're presenting one school rather than the 3 schools that we presented in the last plan.
Absolutely.
Therefore, we can do that under 2.5.
One school at a time.
What has changed in your mind relative to the state's involvement in this project and the School Building Assistance Bureau position at the state level?
Well, last year we were faced with the fact it was the last year of the current legislation, or the past legislation. The legislature has increased this program for 5 more years, starting July 1st of 1996. So we are assured, provided that we can meet the timelines of getting the plans approved by the state by June 1st of 1997, that we will be in line for reimbursement on the Dahlbeer building, even though it will be under construction beforehand. We'll receive that reimbursement by the year 2002. And based upon our conversations that we have had with the School Building Assistance Bureau, we will probably be receiving the funds to go under construction of Woodville in 2003. But one of the very key elements of dealing with the state is that every year towns like Wakefield are going forward with projects and putting 90 of them on the list. And the state has the ability to fund 30. So for every year that if a town waits to put a facility on the list, they have another 3-year wait. That's why it's very critical that we get on the list this year.
Again, the extension of the SBAB legislation cemented the issue of 64% reimbursement to the town of Wakefield, not only for the capital costs, but for the financing costs of this project.
Absolutely, and that as long as we're on that list for any of these phases for the year 2001, they will be funded with the 64% reimbursement.
Certainly 2/3 of the square foot of the school district is at the middle school and the high school. Where do the renovation needs of those two schools fit into this plan?
I think it's very critical that the people of Wakefield realize that we have 400,000 square feet in the school that we're in today, the high school and the middle school on Main Street. Middle school on Main Street was built in 1954, and this school was built in the early 60s, and there were additions put on in 1972. We need to do a planning article in this long-range phase sometime around 1999 to the year 2000, which will give us the ability to get reimbursement from the state to do the renovations in these two buildings sometime between the years 2009 and 2012. And just to give you an example of why it's so necessary, and we've used this example before, in these two buildings we've got 410,000 square feet of windows. I own a home, and I've lived in a home for 25 or 30 years, and I see that after another 5 years I'm going to have to replace my windows in my home. Well, to replace the windows in these two buildings alone will cost $2.4 million. The town of Wakefield can't afford to replace things like that from their budgets. So what we really need to do is to plan this out so in the year 2010, the resources from the state will be there to give us the ability to do so. And we can't do it on our own. We need their help. And I do feel that every single school building that we've built in this town since 1950 has been built through SBAB. And I believe that every building that we build and renovate in the future will come from SBAB.
Good. How do you see this plan impacting the operation budget? And perhaps most specifically, the capital needs side of the operation budget that allows us to keep the current schools open while we implement this new plan?
Well, again, I think we've been very pleased to have a person like Leo Couture and his committee working on this. We have a capital maintenance committee. We know that being a long-range plan, we have to have adequate resources every year to be able to put this continuation in place. And we have approximately $530,000 a year budgeted now from the town of Wakefield. Leo and his group have systematically sat down and said, what can we do every year to keep these facilities open, to keep them safe for our students and staff during this period of time? That, by the way, the task force's work will not be completed on November 7th. It will be completed in the year 2020.
And again, that $530,000 is now in the operating budget. It's in the current tax rate.
That's right.
So to the extent that we can sustain that budget over the next 5 or 6 years, we can control the demands on the tax rate as that relates to that particular issue.
Absolutely. And we use those and we put that to the best use, mindful of the fact that if we finish in 1999 taking Montrose out, we will not have to spend money in Montrose. We'll put more money in Greenwood, more money in Franklin because of the ability to take buildings out that we cannot maintain.
As we wind down the program today, how can the citizens of Wakefield, where can they get more information, more detail on the plan that we're presenting?
Well, I think this is the most difficult part of it because we had a tremendous experience, as we all know, last year trying to present the plan to the town, and I sincerely hope that the town doesn't feel like that was it and they're not going to come out for this one. This plan is a no-risk plan for the town of Wakefield, something that we have to do. We're running forums. We'll run a forum this coming Monday night at the Montrose School at 7 o'clock. The following Monday night at 7 o'clock, I believe, is at the Greenwood School. And on the 2nd of November, which is the third Monday night, we'll be at the Doyle School. That's not just for school people. We've got to stress this is for everybody of Wakefield. Your office will have materials that will be available. We will be speaking before groups in this town over the next couple of weeks. And hopefully we'll have in the item and chronicle an ongoing explanation of this plan and get as much information out as we can. We really need the people of this town to come out on the 7th. If they give us one night, we can give them back 50 years of quality facilities for this community at no additional cost to their tax rate.
The pamphlet that Mr. Scully mentioned is the Wakefield School Facilities Task Force. It's an executive summary of the task force report. These copies are available in the superintendent's office. They are available in the schools. Again, it's additional detail of some of the things we've talked about today. Again, my pleasure to have you with us today, Mr. Scully, and thank you for all the time and energy on the behalf of the young people of Wakefield that you've committed to this very important project. It really speaks to the future of this community, the quality of life, and the opportunity our young people have. So thank you for all the time you've dedicated to this, and we look certainly to November 7th for a very affirmative vote. Thanks again for coming today.
Thank you.